origins of wine. Long before wine existed as a defined product, humans interacted with wild grapes as a seasonal food source. Wild grapevines grew naturally across large parts of Eurasia. The fruit was consumed fresh, dried, or crushed for juice. Grapes possess a unique characteristic. Their skins naturally carry yeast. When grapes are crushed and the juice is exposed to air, fermentation can occur without deliberate human intervention. This natural process is central to the origin of wine. Fermentation is a biological process. Yeast consumes sugars and produces alcohol and carbon dioxide as byproducts. In the case of grapes, sugar levels are high enough to allow fermentation to progress naturally. Unlike many other fruits, grapes can ferment into a stable alcoholic beverage without additives. This property made wine one of the earliest fermented drinks available to human societies. The earliest wine was likely discovered unintentionally. Crushed grapes stored in containers may have begun fermenting on their own. The resulting liquid would have been intoxicating and noticeably different from fresh juice. Early humans may have associated this effect with ritual, nutrition, or preservation. Over time, repeated exposure led to recognition of the process rather than mere accident. The development of agriculture during the Neolithic period created conditions necessary for wine production. Permanent settlements allowed for the storage of food and liquids. Pottery vessels became common. Clay jars provided a stable environment for fermentation. Once sealed, they limited exposure to air while allowing yeast activity to continue. This technological development was essential. Chemical analysis of ancient pottery has revealed traces associated with wine. Residues of tartaric acid, a compound found in grapes, have been identified in vessels dating back thousands of years. Some of the earliest evidence appears in regions near the Caucasus, including modern-day Georgia, Armenia, and Iran. These findings suggest wine production began several millennia before written history. Early wine production was simple. Grapes were crushed by foot or hand. Juice and skins were left together to ferment. Containers were buried or stored in cool environments. There was little separation between winemaking and daily life. Wine was not yet specialized or standardized. Each batch varied depending on conditions. As wine became more familiar, it gained social significance. Fermented beverages were not consumed casually in all contexts. Alcohol altered perception and behavior. This effect contributed to wine's association with ceremony, leadership, and communal gatherings. Wine gradually became distinct from ordinary food or drink. Fermentation also served a practical purpose. Alcohol inhibits the growth of harmful bacteria. In early settlements, fermented liquids were often safer than untreated water. Wine could be stored longer than fresh juice. This preservation advantage increased its value. Over time, humans learned to repeat the fermentation process intentionally. Harvest timing, storage methods, and vessel design were adjusted to improve results. Wine production transitioned from accidental occurrence to deliberate practice. Knowledge was passed through observation rather than written instruction. Different regions developed wine independently or through cultural exchange. Climate, grape varieties, and storage techniques influenced early wine styles. These regional differences would later shape distinct wine cultures. Before formal record keeping, wine existed as part of daily and ritual life. Its presence predates organized states and written language. wine emerged alongside agriculture itself, making it one of humanity's oldest cultural products. The ancient Near East includes regions that today form parts of the Caucasus, Mesopotamia, Anatolia, and the Levant. These areas combined suitable climates, early agriculture, and trade routes that supported the spread of wine production. Grapevines thrived in foothills and upland zones, where rainfall and soil conditions favored cultivation. From these regions, wine moved outward through exchange and migration. As complex societies emerged, wine became integrated into economic and social systems. Unlike beer, which was produced widely and consumed daily by much of the population, wine was often reserved for elites. Its production required specific environmental conditions, making it less accessible. This scarcity increased its symbolic and economic value. In Mesopotamia, particularly in Sumer and Akkad, beer dominated everyday consumption. Grain agriculture favored brewing rather than viticulture. Wine, however, was imported from surrounding regions. It appears in written records as a luxury good associated with temples, rulers, and ceremonial use, rather than daily nourishment. Some of the earliest written references to wine appear in cuneiform tablets. These texts record rations, offerings, and trade inventories. Wine was carefully accounted for. Its movement and storage were overseen by administrators, indicating its importance within institutional settings. The Levant, including areas of modern-day Israel, Lebanon, and surrounding regions, became a major center of wine production. Vineyards were cultivated systematically. Wine presses and storage facilities have been identified archaeologically, suggesting organized production beyond household scale. Wine was transported in ceramic vessels such as amphorae. These containers protected liquid during long journeys and could be sealed to limit spoilage. Trade routes connected wine-producing regions with urban centers. Wine moved by land and sea, contributing to early long-distance commerce. Wine held ritual significance across the ancient Near East. It was offered to deities in temples and used in ceremonial contexts. Fermentation and intoxication were often associated with divine favor or altered states of awareness. Wine became linked to religious symbolism. Access to wine reflected social hierarchy. Elites consumed wine more frequently, while lower classes relied primarily on beer or water. Wine consumption became a marker of status, reinforcing divisions within early societies. Large storage jars allowed wine to be kept for extended periods. Some vessels were partially buried to maintain stable temperatures. Although aging was not understood scientifically, storage practices influenced flavor and strength. Variation between batches was common. Because wine was valuable, its production and distribution were often regulated by institutions such as temples and palaces. This control ensured supply for ritual and elite use, while also reinforcing political authority. As populations interacted, winemaking knowledge spread. Techniques moved alongside goods and people. Wine thus became both a product and a vehicle of cultural transmission across the ancient Near East. By the end of the ancient period, wine had become closely associated with settled life, ritual practice, and elite identity. Its presence signaled agricultural surplus, trade connectivity, and social complexity. Ancient Egyptian civilization developed along the Nile River, whose annual flooding created fertile agricultural land. While grain cultivation dominated most regions, viticulture developed in specific areas suited to grape growing. Vineyards were typically located in the Nile Delta and along elevated ground where drainage and sunlight were favorable. These environmental conditions allowed grape cultivation on a scale sufficient to support wine production. In ancient Egypt, wine was not a universal daily beverage. Beer fulfilled that role for most of the population. Wine, by contrast, was associated with higher social status. Royal households, priests and elites consumed wine more regularly. Its restricted availability reinforced social distinctions and symbolized wealth and authority. Egyptian vineyards were organized agricultural enterprises. Archaeological evidence and tomb paintings depict trellised vines, pruning practices, and systematic harvesting. Workers tended vineyards under administrative supervision. Viticulture required long-term planning and labor coordination, distinguishing it from more common grain farming. Grapes were harvested by hand and transported to presses. Crushing was often done by foot in shallow basins. Juice flowed into collection vessels, where fermentation occurred. Fermentation relied on naturally occurring yeast. There was limited understanding of the biological process, but practical knowledge guided timing and storage. Wine was stored in ceramic jars, sealed with clay stoppers or resin. These jars were sometimes labeled with ink inscriptions. Labels could include information such as year of production, vineyard origin, and the name of the estate or official responsible. This represents one of the earliest known systems of wine classification. Wine played an important role in Egyptian religious life. It was offered to deities in temples and included in ritual ceremonies. Certain gods were associated with wine and intoxication. Wine symbolized abundance, transformation, and divine favor within religious contexts. Wine was placed in tombs as part of burial provisions. It was intended for use in the afterlife, reflecting beliefs about continuity beyond death. The inclusion of wine in burial goods emphasized its cultural and symbolic value rather than its nutritional role. Wine production and distribution were closely monitored by the state and temple institutions. Records documented quantities produced, stored, and distributed. This administrative oversight ensured supply for elite consumption and ritual use, reinforcing centralized authority. While beer remained the primary beverage for the general population, wine occupied a separate cultural category. Wine was consumed in more formal settings and was associated with refinement, ceremony, and prestige. Medical texts from ancient Egypt mention wine as a component in remedies. It served as a solvent for herbs and other substances. Wine's preservative qualities made it useful in pharmaceutical preparation, as well as ritual contexts. Although Egypt produced its own wine, imported wines also circulated. Trade connections brought wine from the Levant and other regions. Imported wine further enhanced status, as foreign origin increased perceived value. Tomb art and inscriptions frequently depict wine production and consumption. These images provide detailed insight into techniques and social meanings. Wine appears as part of banquets, offerings, and ceremonial gatherings. Egyptian practices influenced later Mediterranean wine cultures. Techniques related to vineyard management, storage, and labeling persisted. Egypt contributed to the administrative and symbolic dimensions of wine rather than large-scale commercial export. In ancient Greece, wine occupied a central position in daily life, social organization, and intellectual culture. Viticulture spread widely across the Greek mainland, islands, and coastal colonies. The Mediterranean climate supported grape cultivation, and wine production became common in many regions. Wine was not considered a luxury restricted only to elites, nor was it a simple staple like bread. Instead, it occupied an intermediate position as a regulated and culturally defined substance. One of the defining features of Greek wine culture was dilution. Wine was almost always mixed with water before consumption. Drinking undiluted wine was generally viewed as improper and excessive. The practice of dilution reflected broader cultural values centered on moderation and self-control. Wine was meant to accompany conversation and reflection rather than intoxication. The symposium was a structured social gathering centered on wine consumption. It typically involved elite male participants reclining together, drinking wine, and engaging in discussion. Conversation at symposia included politics, poetry, philosophy, and social commentary. The pace of drinking was controlled, reinforcing ideals of balance and order. Greek philosophers frequently wrote about wine. Some viewed it as a tool for relaxation and social bonding when consumed appropriately. Others warned against excess. Wine became a subject through which broader ideas about ethics, moderation, and human behavior were explored. Greek medical writers considered wine within early theories of health. Wine was classified according to qualities such as warmth, dryness, and strength. Physicians recommended different wines for different conditions. Wine was believed to influence digestion, circulation, and temperament. Greek wine production varied by region. Soil, climate, and grape variety influenced flavor and strength. Certain regions developed reputations for specific styles of wine. These reputations contributed to early ideas of regional identity and quality. Wine was stored and transported in amphora. These ceramic vessels were sealed with resin or clay to reduce spoilage. Amphorae were marked with symbols or inscriptions identifying origin. This facilitated trade and regulation across the Greek world. As Greek colonies expanded across the Mediterranean, viticulture spread with them. Vineyards were planted in new settlements. Wine became an important trade good, exchanged alongside olive oil and grain. Greek wine circulated widely through maritime trade networks. Wine held ritual significance in Greek religion. It was associated with deities connected to agriculture, fertility, and transformation. Wine was used in offerings and festivals. Its ability to alter perception linked it to ideas of divine presence and inspiration. Although wine was widely consumed, access and context mattered. Participation in symposia reflected social status. Women, enslaved people, and non-citizens were generally excluded from formal drinking gatherings, reinforcing social boundaries. Greek society developed informal norms governing wine use. Excessive drinking was criticized, particularly when it disrupted social harmony. Literature and art often depicted the consequences of imbalance, reinforcing cultural expectations. Wine appears frequently in Greek art and literature. Vase paintings depict scenes of production, transport, and consumption. Poetry and drama reference wine as part of both celebration and cautionary narrative. Greek ideas about wine strongly influenced Roman practices and later Mediterranean traditions. Concepts of dilution, moderation, and regional distinction persisted. Greek wine culture helped shape wine as an intellectual and social object rather than merely an agricultural product. In the Roman Empire, wine became a central component of daily life across multiple social classes. Unlike earlier cultures where wine was often restricted to elites, Roman society expanded access to wine through large-scale production and distribution. Wine was consumed regularly by soldiers, laborers, and urban populations. It became an everyday commodity, as well as a cultural symbol. Roman expansion played a significant role in the spread of viticulture. As the empire extended across Europe, vineyards were established in newly conquered territories. Regions such as Gaul, Hispania, and parts of Germania developed wine industries under Roman influence. These areas would later become major wine-producing regions in Europe. The Romans introduced more systematic approaches to winemaking. Agricultural texts describe vineyard management, pruning, harvesting, and fermentation techniques. Writers such as Cato, Varro, and Columella documented methods that improved consistency. This marked a transition toward more standardized production. Wine production in the Roman world reached a scale not previously seen. Large estates produced significant quantities of wine for both local consumption and export. This scale required organized labor, storage systems, and transport infrastructure. Wine continued to be stored in amphorae, but wooden barrels also became more common, particularly in northern regions. Barrels were easier to transport and less fragile than ceramic vessels. Their use contributed to the expansion of long-distance trade. Roman trade networks facilitated the movement of wine across vast distances. Roads, rivers, and sea routes connected production areas with urban centers. Wine was distributed throughout the empire, reaching regions far from vineyards. Trade contributed to economic integration across territories. Wine was included in military rations. Soldiers consumed diluted wine as part of their daily provisions. This practice helped spread wine consumption into frontier regions and reinforced its role as a standard component of Roman life. Wine functioned as both a commodity and a cultural marker. Different qualities of wine were available at different prices. Higher quality wines were associated with status, while lower quality wine remained accessible to broader populations. In Roman cities, wine was widely available through taverns and markets. It was consumed in both private homes and public settings. Urban demand supported continuous production and distribution, linking rural vineyards with city economies. Roman authorities and writers expressed concern about wine quality and authenticity. Adulteration, dilution, and mislabeling were recognized issues. Efforts were made to regulate production and maintain standards, although enforcement varied. Wine was commonly diluted with water before consumption, continuing a practice inherited from Greek culture. The ratio varied depending on context and preference. Wine accompanied meals and was integrated into routine dietary habits. Wine appears frequently in Roman literature, including poetry, satire, and philosophical writing. It is depicted as both a source of pleasure and a subject of moderation. Writers discussed wine in relation to social behavior, ethics, and daily life. Roman expansion established the foundations of many modern European wine regions. Techniques, grape cultivation, and infrastructure persisted beyond the fall of the empire. Viticulture remained in place even as political structures changed. After the decline of the Roman Empire, wine production continued in many regions, often maintained by local communities and later by religious institutions. The Roman period represents a stage in which wine shifted from regional product to widespread and structured industry. Following the decline of the Western Roman Empire, many aspects of agricultural production became less centralized. Trade networks weakened, and large-scale distribution declined. Despite these disruptions, viticulture did not disappear. Vineyards continued to exist in regions where they had been previously established. Knowledge of grape cultivation and wine production persisted at a local level. The Christian Church became one of the most important institutions preserving wine production. Wine was required for the Eucharist, a central sacrament in Christian practice. This religious necessity ensured that vineyards were maintained and wine continued to be produced even during periods of political instability. Monasteries played a central role in medieval wine production. Monks lived in organized, self-sufficient communities that emphasized agriculture and manual labor. Vineyards were cultivated as part of monastic landholdings. Monks developed and maintained viticulture practices over long periods. Monastic communities kept written records. These included details about land use, harvest timing, and production quantities. This documentation allowed for gradual improvement in vineyard management. Knowledge was preserved and transmitted across generations. As monastic influence expanded, vineyards were established in new areas. Land grants from rulers and nobles often included agricultural territory suitable for grape cultivation. This contributed to the spread of viticulture across medieval Europe, particularly in regions such as France, Germany, and northern Italy. In many medieval communities, wine was consumed regularly. In some regions, it served as a safer alternative to untreated water. Wine was often diluted and consumed with meals. Its role varied depending on local availability and economic conditions. Vineyards were often controlled within feudal systems. Landowners, including the church and nobility, oversaw production. Peasants worked the land under various forms of obligation. Wine production was integrated into broader agricultural systems. Over time, specific regions developed reputations for wine production. Differences in soil, climate, and technique contributed to variation. These early distinctions laid the foundation for later concepts of regional identity in wine. Medieval winemaking continued many Roman practices, but adapted to local conditions. Wooden barrels became more common for storage and transport. Fermentation remained dependent on natural yeast. Control over the process was limited, but improved gradually through experience. Wine trade continued on a regional scale. Rivers and trade routes facilitated movement between production areas and population centers. While long-distance trade declined compared to the Roman period, it did not disappear entirely. Wine retained strong symbolic meaning within Christianity. It represented transformation, sacrifice, and ritual continuity. Its importance in religious practice reinforced its production and preservation across centuries. Medieval climate conditions influenced wine production. Periods of warmer temperatures supported vineyard expansion in northern regions. Shifts in climate affected harvest yields and wine quality, though these patterns were not fully understood at the time. The medieval period preserved viticulture during a time of broader social and economic transition. Monastic and agricultural systems maintained continuity. These foundations supported later developments in wine production, trade, and regional identity. For much of history, winemaking was guided by observation and tradition rather than scientific knowledge. Producers understood outcomes, but not the underlying biological mechanisms. By the early modern period, interest in chemistry and natural science began to influence agricultural practices. Wine became a subject of study as well as production. Fermentation was not fully understood until the development of microbiology in the 19th century. Prior to this, fermentation was often attributed to spontaneous or undefined processes. Scientific investigation revealed that yeast was responsible for converting sugar into alcohol. This discovery provided a clear explanation for a process that had been used for thousands of years. Louis Pasteur played a significant role in understanding fermentation. His research demonstrated that fermentation was a biological process driven by living microorganisms. Pasteur's work allowed winemakers to better control fermentation, reduce spoilage, and improve consistency. With a scientific understanding of fermentation, winemakers gained greater control over production, temperature, cleanliness, and timing became more precisely managed. This reduced variability between batches and allowed for more predictable outcomes. Advances in glass production made bottles more durable and widely available. The use of cork as a seal allowed wine to be stored for extended periods without significant exposure to air. This combination enabled long-term aging and transportation over greater distances. As storage improved, the effects of aging became more apparent. Certain wines developed more complex flavors over time. Although the chemistry of aging was not fully understood, the practice became more intentional and valued. European exploration and colonization carried grapevines to new regions. Viticulture spread to the Americas, South Africa, and Australia. These regions adapted grape cultivation to different climates and conditions, creating new wine-producing areas. In new regions, winemakers faced different soils, temperatures, and rainfall patterns. Local conditions influenced grape selection and production methods. This led to variation in wine styles outside traditional European regions. In the 19th century, European vineyards were severely affected by phylloxera, a pest that damaged grapevine roots. Large areas of vineyards were destroyed. Wine production declined significantly in affected regions. The solution involved grafting European grapevines onto resistant rootstocks from North America. This approach combined desirable grape characteristics with pest resistance. The crisis led to a more scientific approach to vineyard management and plant selection. As wine production expanded, systems of classification developed. Regions defined boundaries and production methods. Standards were introduced to maintain quality and authenticity. These systems varied by country, but shared common goals. Technological advancements allowed for larger scale production. Mechanical presses, controlled fermentation tanks, and improved storage increased efficiency. Wine production became both an agricultural and industrial activity. Improved transportation, including railways and steamships, facilitated global wine trade. Wine could be exported to distant markets with reduced spoilage. This expanded consumption beyond traditional wine-producing regions. As wine became more widely available, its role evolved. It remained associated with culture and tradition, but also became a commercial product in global markets. Consumption patterns varied by region, reflecting both local customs and international influence. Scientific understanding, technological development, and global expansion together shaped the modern wine industry. These changes transformed wine from a regional agricultural product into a standardized and internationally traded commodity. In the modern era, wine production operates on a global scale. Major wine-producing regions exist across Europe, the Americas, Africa, Australia, and parts of Asia. Production is no longer limited by geography in the same way as earlier periods. Advances in transportation, technology, and agricultural science allow wine to be produced and distributed worldwide. Wine is often categorized into two broad groups: Old World and New World. Old World wine refers to traditional European regions such as France, Italy, and Spain. These regions emphasize historical methods, regional identity, and regulation. New World wine refers to regions such as the United States, Australia, Chile, and South Africa. These areas often prioritize innovation, consistency, and market accessibility. Terroir is a concept that describes how environmental factors influence wine. Soil composition, climate, altitude, and local practices all contribute to the characteristics of a wine. In many regions, terroir is central to identity. It is used to distinguish wines from different locations, even when produced from the same grape variety. Modern wine production is often governed by formal classification systems. These systems define geographic boundaries, permitted grape varieties, and production methods. Examples include appellation systems in Europe, which aim to protect authenticity and maintain standards. Regulations vary by country, but share the goal of quality control. Large-scale wine production uses advanced technology, Stainless steel fermentation tanks, temperature control systems, and automated bottling lines increase efficiency. Industrial production focuses on consistency, volume, and cost control. Wines produced in this way are widely distributed and accessible. Alongside industrial production, smaller producers emphasize traditional or experimental methods. These may include minimal intervention, organic farming, or natural fermentation. Artisanal production often prioritizes uniqueness and expression over consistency. Variation between vintages is expected. Wine consumption varies significantly across regions. In some countries, wine remains part of daily meals. In others, it is consumed more occasionally or associated with specific social contexts. Changing lifestyles, economic conditions, and cultural preferences influence consumption patterns. Wine continues to carry cultural meaning. It is associated with tradition, geography, and identity. At the same time, it functions as a commercial product within a global market. This dual role shapes how wine is produced, marketed, and consumed. Modern producers use data to inform decisions. Climate monitoring, soil analysis, and fermentation tracking improve precision. Technology allows producers to respond to environmental conditions more effectively than in previous periods. Climate change is affecting wine production. Shifts in temperature and weather patterns influence grape ripening and harvest timing. Some regions are adapting by altering grape varieties, changing vineyard locations, or adjusting production methods. Wine is now traded internationally on a large scale. Export markets play a significant role in many producing countries. Global competition influences pricing, branding, and production strategies. Despite technological and economic changes, many traditional practices remain. Hand harvesting, aging techniques, and regional methods continue alongside modern approaches. The wine industry reflects both continuity and adaptation. In the modern world, wine is no longer a necessity for survival. It is primarily consumed for cultural, social, and aesthetic reasons. Its role has shifted from daily sustenance to a product associated with experience and preference.